Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. Welcome to the community live stream. My name is Chuck Tomasi from ServiceNow, Senior Developer Advocate. This is November 30th, 2020, and our topic today is GlideAjax, always a classic, always a favorite, and asked frequently on the community, so I thought it's time to put a stake in this thing. I was greeting the chat this morning. Thank you very much for joining. If you're watching this live on YouTube, appreciate it very much. We do have a very wonderful live chat going on. A number of people, recognizable faces, returning and new faces showing up. It is all times of day and night as we do this live, 2 p.m. UTC on Mondays and Thursdays. Hope to see you there. I did have to laugh at myself for misinterpreting one of the names. I believe the handle is Grown Ups, but I'm so much of a nerd, I read that as Grown UPS, as in uninterruptible power supply, not the package carrier. I went, okay, that's just off the edge. That's what I read this morning. I went, why would somebody be a Grown UPS? What's a little UPS look like? If you've had fun with data centers and uninterruptible power supplies, you'll laugh. Okay, that's all the humor you get to. Well, no, it's not. We're also going to do this on Twitch at the same time as a backup plan, and as a backup to the backup, we've got a local MP4 being copied. I will warn you that I have had some internet issues the last couple of days, working through them. Not sure they're entirely resolved. Speed tests in the last few minutes have shown, we're getting what we expect and sufficient enough to hold up this stream, but if something happens and the stream goes weird, I will upload a nice, clean, locally recorded version. I won't have the interaction from the chat, but we'll get through this. And I want to make sure you get this GlideAjax information right away. Okay, those of you who have children know about seeing things in a different way. That's what happens when you have kids. Long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, that my kids distorted my view of the world, and now I see things like Grown UPS. That's what they will do. And now they're married and going off to jobs on their own. Oh, where does the time go? Well, I can tell you where my time goes. It goes a lot into making these videos for the community, and I invite you to spend some time in the community as well, either reviewing questions, dig into something you don't know and learn about that, get involved with that thread or discussion or completely new forum, or post your questions out there. There are hundreds of thousands of people that are willing to help you out. So over at community.servicenow.com, especially if you're watching live and your question goes outside the purview of GlideAjax, it's a wonderful topic, but if you start asking me questions about SecOps or GRC or incident management, it's not happening here. That goes in the community. That's what you see behind me. I invite you to partake of that. Also invite you to go over to developer.servicenow.com, where you can get a free personal developer instance. And I can try and find my cursor on here. Okay, I've got to get the next screen set up. It all happens live. One-man show. Lights, camera, action, video, angles, buttons, music. It's all me. It's amazing. Anything happens. Murphy's Law is just waiting for a sniper attack today to make sure something doesn't work. I got to check if the mic is unmuted. Anyway, developer portal, free developer instance. That's a wonderful thing. Use it as your sandbox. Test it out. Free APIs, free learning plans, blogs, videos, you name it. We're coming at you with more developer content every day. If you want to make that career transition from admin to developer, this is a great place to start. If you're new, if you've been doing development for 10, 15, 20 years on other platforms and you want to learn about the Now platform and how things work, this is a great place to get started. And if you want to discuss face-to-face with some of these people, well, virtually face-to-face right now, but eventually we'll get back to real in-person meetups. Meetup.com/pro, see if I can say this morning. It is early, but I can talk most of the time. Meetup.com/pro/ServiceNow Dev Program is where you want to go. And there are meetups happening all over the place. I believe, what is it, Vancouver? Somebody's got one coming up next week. There's a couple this week. You know, why don't I just scroll down, because that's where the info is. We've got Pune is December 19th. We've got Vancouver on the 8th. I will be attending that one. Looking forward to that very much. If something is in your time zone or slightly out of your time zone, I invite you, go check them out. They're happening virtual. It's really easy to attend without too much imposition on your schedule. The 15th, we've got Stockholm. The 19th, we've got Mumbai. DC on the 10th, everybody's getting their pre-holiday ones. So wear your party gear, your ugly sweaters, turn on the flashing lights, do what you would do. Let's make it a Christmas party at every one of these. How's that for a goal? Have fun. Good morning to everybody who's joining me live on the live stream. Community live stream. We're going to go talk about GlideAjax today. So thanks, chat. No, Michael, it is not 6 a.m. in Arizona because Arizona doesn't change their clocks. It's 7 a.m. and it will always be 7 a.m. because I don't change my clocks. That's why you guys got to do the math on this one. I say 2 p.m. UTC for a reason. There's some thought behind that phrase. All right. I also want to remind you that there is a developer podcast. It's been out for, about almost 5 months now? Wow. Where does the time go? Breakpoint is what you want to look for when you go searching through Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts or Spotify or Amazon or wherever you get your podcasts. Breakpoint is the developer podcast. We had a wonderful discussion last week with Tim Woodruff. If you haven't heard that, I invite you to listen. You can listen online. It's audio only. I shouldn't say watch. You can listen online. There's no updates. That's no PowerPoints, no demos. It's just open discussion between external developers, internal developers. We've got more stuff planned. The pipeline is full. Very much looking forward to doing more Breakpoint episodes. In fact, I've got to edit up our next episode, which will be coming out on the, what would it be? Tomorrow's the 1st, 2nd, the 9th. December 9th, I'll be releasing an episode with Josh Nereus all around Integration Hub and some of his favorite features, and you'll get a sneak peek into the roadmap of what's coming in Integration Hub in Quebec and beyond. So looking forward to that very, very much. Got to scroll down, make sure I didn't miss anything in the notes. Nope, right where I want to be. So go listen to Breakpoint. Also, if you haven't done already, go over to bit.ly/TN82reg. Sign up for our next Tech Now, which is on December 15th for Instance Data Replication, or IDR. Easiest way I know to move data between two ServiceNow instances. Takes care of all the security, very easy to configure, very fast. I'm going to let Craig Stepp tell you all about it and demo it. So look for that coming up in just a couple of weeks. Oh my gosh. This machine needs to keep being fed. We will be doing a little bit of scripting today, and I will make sure that I have all of those scripts available for you over on the GitHub repo that you find at bit.ly/sn-cls. That's the shortcut. The real name is too long to, takes too much time. But I make these links short so you can remember them, I can remember them, we can all type them in easily. You'll find a dated folder with today's date, 2020-11-30, with a couple of scripts. I'll be walking through some client scripts, some script includes, test script. I'll make this all available moments after I hit the stop button on the live stream. So you can follow along there, grab these scripts, try them on your personal developer instance, and get going that way. If you are not familiar with JavaScript, and some of the stuff that I'm going to show you today looks like hieroglyphics, you're going, what does that mean? I invite you to jump in and start learning. I take you from the basic of basics, variables and statements, and we will build up slowly and surely, and in no time you will be able to recognize, modify, and perhaps even create some of your own JavaScript on the Now platform. So I invite you to look at that. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everybody who has participated in that and recommended it. That's even more important. If you've got colleagues that would like to learn more, you've got admins who want to become developers, you've got people from other platforms who want to jump on the Now platform and start doing this, JavaScript is a great place to start. So hopefully in the next few days you'll start seeing some of my integration series coming out too. So we'll get that taken care of. In the meantime, let's take care of what we came here to do. I'm going to go over to my personal developer instance, and our use case today is going to be around GlideAjax, as I said. I've got two fields, dependent fields on a form, and I want to do the same kind of thing in a record producer. Now, dependent fields don't exist in record producers, and you may have a different use case where you need the client side. I should back up and explain what GlideAjax actually does. Okay, we've got a client script, and we've got a server-side component, because ServiceNow can do scripting on both sides. Most people who are new to the ServiceNow platform are aware of client-side scripts, but there's a lot of power in the server components, like accessing the database directly. Well, every once in a while, you need the client to have data from the server. It's not all, we're not passing, every record for every, it wouldn't make sense. It would slow down the whole experience too much. And so every once in a while, the client has to say, hey, I need some data that I don't have. It can do this in one of a couple of ways. One is if the server pushes that information through a mechanism called G_scratchpad. You can put that into a business rule, send it over, the client script has it. But it's static. Once it's sent, and that's what the client has. If it's something like a system property, perfect. You don't need to go every client script saying, hey, I need that system property and I need that system. It's not changing all that much, really, because system properties shouldn't. But you can use G_scratchpad to say, we'll do that in a little, we'll talk about G_scratchpad in a little more detail in the future. But it can push that information. The other option is to have the client request this. Now, underlying a lot of that technology is what they call XML, HTTP XML. I can't even remember because it's so far down, I don't even care anymore. But there is a request that happens from the browser to the server. It says, I would like some information. The server acknowledges it, does the transformation, sends it back, either synchronously, making the client wait. So synchronous and asynchronous, important that you remember the difference between these two, because we will be getting to these in just a little bit. Asynchronously means happens in the background. Okay. The client makes a request, and while the server is processing, and this could take a few seconds, you don't want the browser to wait a few seconds. I'm sure you've all experienced something where you're waiting and waiting and waiting and going, boy, this system is slow. Well, not necessarily. It may be doing something downstream, like, hey, server, go get me this data. And the server says, oh, I have to get that from a third party. Does the arrest request, comes back. Meanwhile, the client's sitting there locked up, waiting. You can do that asynchronously so that the client can go on, and then by means of a callback, the browser says, the server says, I'm done, sends that information back, and away you go. You've got the information. A field gets filled in, or something transforms on the client later. Most of the time, this is within a few milliseconds, and you don't even notice. Asynchronous is the preferred way to go. In fact, it's the only way to go in many cases when you start getting into other UIs like Service Portal and Workspace. So be aware that there's synchronous and there's asynchronous. There's times when you need to have synchronous communications, like on submit. You don't want to hit that submit button. Ask the server for some information. Meanwhile, the browser goes and submits the form. And the server comes back and says, I'm done. Hey, where'd you go? What happened? Well, it already advanced on. That would be asynchronous, where you say, I'm going to submit. I have to wait for the server to find out, should I submit or abort? That would be a good use case for a synchronous communication. Make the client wait until things come back. Most of the times with on change or on load, no, you don't need that to be synchronous. It would just be, it ruins the experience. Okay, back to my use case. Whew. Hope you got all that. That was the intro to the synchronous versus asynchronous in different ways. We are going to, forgot to mention the other ways we could do this. So one way is a client-side glide record query. I don't recommend this because all of the methods that you get from the server-side glide record, which is the main API we use to interact with our database, they're not all available on the client side. So you're dealing with a partial set of what you're usually comfortable with. Okay, not the best way to go. The second way is to do what's called a gform.get record. And you can say, go get the information for this record. And it will retrieve the entire record. Now, sometimes this is a significant amount of information. You say, well, I'm looking at a change record and I need the manager. Okay, go get the manager. You can do that, but it's going to get the manager and a whole bunch of attributes that you probably don't need because all you wanted was the manager's name or sysid. That's a waste of time. Okay, you just went and got 80K of information for 32 bytes of use. Not worth it. GlideAjax lets you control what is requested and what is sent back. The response, the request and the response. I'm going to show you that with an example of some structured data, some complex data that we can ask for and retrieve. So let's get on with that use case. Back to my record producer. Let me look at the actual course table first. Here's the way it looks in a standard form. So I'm going to go to my course table, and I've got a couple of dependent fields in here, or one dependent field. For each course, I have a track. I've got history, liberal arts, mathematics, science, and if I pick science, it automatically adjusts the, you see my automatic instructor assignment from the last episode is still working here. I've got physics, chemistry, astronomy. If I change this to mathematics, I get algebra, calculus, analytics. Okay, so category is dynamically updating. And if you haven't seen that before, let me give you a quick peek behind the curtain. I'm going to go to Configure Dictionary. It says, hey, you changed something. Yeah, I know. Go to the dictionary, and if the browser is slow, I get to take a drinking break. The last of my herbal tea. And down here on the dictionary entry, under dependent field, it says, make this field dependent, right here. Okay. This is a dependent field, and I'm going to use the track field. Then when I set up my choices on the form, and I say, hey, category, here are your choices. And I say, show choice list. Notice there is a dependent value on here. Let's do a shift click just to highlight those. Okay. So strategy is dependent on management value from that dependent field. It ties these, it binds these two fields together. So it says these choices go with the track management value. These choices go with the track science value. Okay. What I noticed and frustrates me often is that a record producer, finally getting back to that record producer that we started 10 minutes ago, under record producers, I've got a create course. Well, there is no dependent field. Bothers me. Okay. I've got my track field and I've got my category field as variables. And when I look at, I did click that, did I not? When I look at the definition for category, there you can look, unless somebody knows something I don't, there's no dependent in here. And if there was, I wouldn't use it because that would ruin my demo. Okay. So I've got all kinds of great information in here, but I don't have that ability to bind category to track. Much the same way that incident has category and subcategory, I'm using track and category. Okay, you get the idea. But it doesn't work here. So I'm going to build my own dependency. So when track changes, it goes and looks up those appropriate choices for category, sends them back, and I will reconstruct the category list on the fly. That's our goal. I think we can do it. Let's get going. So we described, we covered our use case. Let's get into it. Okay, we showed the course record. I'm just checking my notes. Want to make sure I didn't miss anything. First thing I want to do before that is see if my graphic is still here. Yes, it still is. We covered this a while ago, but I like to refer to it. This is how I structure the APIs and who calls what. And we are going to start way up there in the upper left corner. Well, no, we're not. That's where the conversation is going to get started, but that's not the way I build things. Build from the bottom up. We're going to start with a script include that says, go get me the data first. Then I'm going to make a script include that references that, and then a client callable script include that references that, and then a client script that references. Why am I doing this in layers? Easier to test, more flexible APIs, reusable content. You get the idea. It may feel like I'm over-engineering this, but I need at least two components. One is the script include, and one is the client script. I'm inserting another script include in there so that I can reuse the server-side content in another script. I'll explain that in just a sec. That's our goal. That's where we're going. Let me get back to the screen. There it is. Let's start by going to Studio, because I've already got this scoped application halfway started, called CLS for Community Livestream, not very imaginative, and collapse this. I've got a whole bunch of stuff in here, including some script includes. And if you remember, if you were around, I did some client-side Ajax stuff at one point. And you can see here is a standard good old script include. It's not client callable, as you can tell from that field not being checked. And it does just a couple of functions: get ID, get URL, blah, 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 blah. And there's a get info, which calls the other functions. This one that I called instance Ajax, and you'll find this pretty common as you look through the script includes. There's often an Ajax component and their non-Ajax component. If I just had this client callable Ajax piece, it would work fine with the client scripts, but the underlying logic would not be available to any other server-side scripts. That's what I want to make repurposable, and that's why I have this extra layer in there. So that's where we're going with this. Let's start by going to create application file, or in my case, I think it's Command-Shift-C is the shortcut in Studio. Apologies for the crazy screen stuff. Server development, script include. I'm going to double click that and call this course. This is my bottom one. This is the gray area down here, purple one on the left. Script includes. Okay? That's what we're going to do. This is not client callable. This is the server side only. And I'll not worry about who it's accessible from. Now, in the interest of time, this script does get a little big, so I've already pre-baked one. And I will share this on the GitHub repo that we talked about earlier. But let's walk through this real quick. Collapse that so we've got a little more screen real estate. ServiceNow has already built me out this part. It builds this template, var course, course prototype, blah, blah, blah. All I did was say, I need a new function in here called get track categories. That's going to go into the sys choice table right here with a glide record query. And I say, I need the name. Name is table. Often cases, if you look in the dictionary in sys choice, you see the label table. You got to check this one. Always check table and field or table and element. They often have different names. So I'm saying go get the entries from syschoice for the course table category field. Hey, you've got 20 of them. Great. I need to narrow that down just a little bit more. I want them where the dependent value is track. Track came in from where I'm calling this function. It's an input parameter. The language is going to be whatever the user's language is. Yes, I'm making this language independent. It's very important because you may have multilingual things and you don't want 3 records for mathematics in calculus, analytics, and algebra in Spanish and German and Portuguese. You're going to have 27 entries if you've got 9 languages. So let's narrow this down to the user's language. Works really well. I want inactive false. This is one of those weird places, and it's about the only place I've ever seen where active is now inactive. So remember to reverse that logic. And I want to order them by the sequence. Get these in order. Okay? Once I've done my glide record query, not too much difficulty here, just filtering to get just the records I need. I'll get the query, and for every record I find, I'm going to create an array of objects. List is an empty array up here. I create each object. Label is a get value label. Value is a get value value. Sounds redundant, but that's the way it goes. I'm pulling these values out of the sys choice table. And then sequence is going to be a get value of the sequence. I want that number. Interestingly enough, I just discovered something. That should be a value, like a numeric value. So let's put a parse int, which I didn't do before. Otherwise, it's going to sort alphabetically because get value returns strings, sadly. Yeah, you could probably stick in a use case for glide query in here somewhere and make this much cleaner. I challenge you if you want to look at glide query, if you're a fan of that. Let's do that. Now we will get back a number that will sort accordingly. And copy that, blast it in there. There's our code. We now have some clearly untested code, so this could go either way. I want to test this. As I build up that stack, let's test it. So make sure that get track categories does what I expect. I have a sample test script, boom, that says go get a new course object and run the track categories on the science thing, and then display this all to me. gs.info is our way to output something in script's background. JSON stringify takes the array of objects, turns it into a human readable string. It says an object, and this makes it pretty. Explain as we go. Let's go over to my instance, script's background, paste, run, and it says, great, you have yourself a nice object. Label physics, value physics, you get the idea. 12, 13, 14. These are the choices I want when, where's my back arrow? When the track is science. What if the track is, I can't remember what the other track values were. Mathematics? Ematics. Hey, let's see what we get when we have a bogus value. Run that, and I get algebra, calculus, analytics, just how I saw them on the classic form. When I changed the track value, this is what came up in the category value. So I'm able to reference this script include to get a list of objects. Great, what do I do with that? Let's pass it up to that next value, the script include that's going to interact with our client script. So we'll go make that. Again, create new file, script include. Oh, there's a lot of scripts in here. You just type script, that's annoying. And I'm going to call this course Ajax, just to differentiate it from the course that doesn't do Ajax. Very, very important, very, very often forgotten. I've missed this more times than I can count. Don't forget to check this box to make a client script, or script include client callable. Otherwise, your client script is going to go, hello, and no one's going to answer. Okay. That also changes. Look at what that does to the template down here on the bottom. It used to be var course Ajax is class create. It now extends this object called Ajax, abstract Ajax processor. That's a whole bunch of work that somebody did a long time ago that saves us all the pain and suffering from doing those Ajax calls. We just pop in our thing and we're extending that functionality. Wonderful. Oh, somebody asked, what is constant course table? Thank you, Steve, for responding. It's in a script include called constants. And if you format it in a certain way, you can put in your values and your tables. I do this because a lot of my apps tend to move between instances and change scopes. Something that started on my PDI is x under 66238 becomes x under SNC or x under orb or whatever if I want to distribute it to somebody else. This makes it very easy to say, no, I just changed my user table from sysuser to u_customer, whatever. You have the option of coming here and all of your server-side code will respect this. It knows what those values are. It's like a global constants value for your application. Rather than, oh, explicative here. I just changed my user table. Do you know where that's referenced? And how many scripts? Not really. Yeah, code search can help you, but why? You know, days of old, programmers put their pound defines or whatever right at the top, or they had them in a separate include file. Think of this as an include file. There, how's that? Something that gets automatically included and I can reference from wherever I want. Okay, back to our client callable. Thanks, great sidebar. Back to our client callable script include. That one is over here on course Ajax, a little bit simpler, and I added some untested code this morning, moments before we started broadcasting. Fingers crossed, it's commented out at the moment, but what I'm going to do is say, you are called get track categories. Well, Chuck, didn't you call that get track categories over on here? Yes, I did. Different script includes different methods, totally different. One is going to be called from course Ajax and one is going to be called from course. And it says, I would like to get the parameter that was passed in from the client script called sysparm under track. I got this from the wonderful template over on doc site, or the developer site when I looked up GlideAjax. And it says, first, the client script will do this, then the client script will do this. There's two minimum requirements here. We'll get to this when we get to the client script. But it's going to also pass in me a parameter called sysparm under track. I could call this track. You don't have to call it sysparm under something. But as a standard, as a recognizable parameter from the client, I'm using the same nomenclature that's in the documentation. Not the same variable names, but it's going to expect a variable called sysparm track. That's where I'm going to get science, mathematics, history, that kind of thing. Okay. If I got a parameter, hey, do a little error checking. Otherwise, you're going to send the other script include off on a errant call, and you're probably going to get back the wrong results, if anything. So first I check, did I get a track parameter? If I did, then let's go call the other script include, just like the test script did. I already have faith in that because I tested it, lightly tested it, didn't test everything, right? Didn't do any error checking. But I have enough faith in that if it worked this way in my test script, it will work this way in my script include. Okay. Oh, another discussion going on in the background. Maybe Chuck can briefly show the script include constants. Oh, yep, did that. Thanks, Mark. I do have an episode on that. So Steve picked that up from there. If you go back in the CLS archives, there is I'll try to put a link to that in the YouTube description and the community link before I post this all finally out. So note to self, go get the link to the constants video. I have that. I have an app that tracks all these episodes, so it's easier for me to find it. Okay, once I get that information, I am simply going to return the string value. Important to remember, when you pass information from client to server, server to client, it's always transmitted in text. So I have to stringify this thing. Remember this reports back an array of objects. Great if you're passing between server function and server function and server function. And, absolutely perfect. You can do that. You don't have to stringify and parse. But if I'm communicating between two systems on the internet, anytime it goes between two things, browser and server, instance 1 and instance 2, it's got to be stringified. That's the way the internet communicates. It doesn't know binary data types. Even images are encoded. So remember that. Always a string on the internet. So we're going to stringify this and return exactly what we saw from the other script, just like what came out of that json.stringify in the debug script. Okay. There's a reason this looks so much like this does. Let's copy that, put it into my script include. Don't want to select all that. And there it is. Get track categories, get the parameter. If you get the parameter, do the course lookup and return it. I am going to, this actually doesn't go in here. That would have been a problem. This goes in the client script, and I think I've already written that part, so I'm taking that out. Okay, I'm taking that out. I don't know what I was thinking at 5 a.m. this morning, but that clearly is not the right place. Let's make sure it is in the client script before I get there. Yes, it is. Okay, I'm done. Never mind that untested code part. Let's submit that. Now I'm set up for the client script. There's not really a good way to test this without actually building the client script. The client script is going to say, hey, the track field just changed. Go fetch me some new values for the category field. That's all it is. So let's go build that. It's going to be on the record producer. So do I have the option to do that in here? I don't know. Client script, catalog client scripts. Yes, I do. Record producers are a version of catalog item. I believe they even have the same base table way down deep. But I'm going to say this applies to catalog item. Track update. I have no imagination on my naming today. It's going to apply to the record producer create course. If I remember right. Create course. There it is. And it's going to work on, let's make it work on everything. I don't know. Applies to an item view, no problem. Applies to target record, not a problem. Type, that's the important part. On change, are we going to trigger this client script every time a variable changes, every time it's loaded, and when it's submitted? I'm going to do on change. And let's go look at our completed client script. There it is. Okay. First part says, if you are loading or your new value is empty, I want you to return. Get out. You're not here. This, because on change also runs on load. You can have the same script do two different things. In this case, we're making it exclusively on change. That's what this does. Okay. Don't forget that, because a lot of people write an on-change client script and then they go put the same code in an on-load client script. Like, why did you do that? Because the on-change already runs on load. Okay. That's what isLoading tells you. Now, the fun part. From the docs page, let's go through this together. GlideAjax has an instantiation. When you see the word new, it says, I need a new object modeled after this class. GlideAjax is built into the system. It's not a script include that we can go modify. And it says, I want to talk to the server-side script include called blah, whatever's in the quotes parentheses. In my case, it's going to be called course Ajax. That's the client callable script include we just wrote. Also, mandatory, required, add the parameter sysparm under name. That's the function. That's the method in that script include that we want to talk to. In this case, they use hello world. I'm going to be called get track categories. I think that's what it was called. Yes. This is where Studio's really, really nice. And this is where I first fell in love with Studio, because I can have the client tab open and the server tab open and copy and paste and not have to remember crazy function names. Okay. That was my first love affair with Studio. Like, hooray! This is awesome. Yeah, you could try it with browser tabs, but then you get into the whole back button history thing. And okay. Regarding UI type, I have noticed that often you have to set UT type to all to even execute. I've seen it work with desktop, but when mobile isn't the native mobile app, keep that in mind. That is the web mobile app. So Service Portal and mobile on that case are the same, if I'm not mistaken. Unless somebody knows more about mobile development than I do that. Mobile is native mobile. Maybe we can answer that in the community. We'll have a chit chat back and forth. Okay, those are the two key parts, GlideAjax and addParam sysparm name. Now, I am passing in a track. I want the server to do something based on the client value. So in my case, I'm going to add a parameter called sysparm under track. You can add 1, you can add 0, you can add 15 parameters if you like. I don't suggest it, but you do what you want. Then it says, great, I've set this thing up. Let's go execute. Now, important note about different ways to execute this. The most common and most recommended way are two. There's two most common and two most recommended. There is getXML, which you pass in a function to say, when you're done, server, when you're done, come back and run this client code. Okay. This is asynchronous. Server, go do your thing. I'm not going to make the browser wait and the user get hostile while they have to wait a whole second and a half, because that feels like an eternity on a browser window. I want you to go back and do your thing. GetXML wait. What it returns is an XML payload. And frankly, I really don't care for this response.response.xml document element get attribute just to get the answer out of there. Somebody else didn't like it, so a few years ago, I don't remember exactly when, we came up with a little friendlier version called getXMLAnswer. Now look how much cleaner this callback function is. It says, here's your answer. It passes you the answer object, already parsed out. Okay, so if I need my stringified array of objects, it's already there. Easy. Look, you can just do a parse int. But that's what I'm going to, did I do that? I don't even remember what I did in my script. I have a getXMLAnswer. Yay, hooray. Okay, and it will send me back this part that I can parse out. So I've got a function to do the response payload work, and I've got it inside of a function that's doing the change. That's it. Okay. This one actually looks like it has two separate functions. One is not inside the other. I learned by doing one inside the other, and that's what works for me. You do what works for you. I don't know if there's any technicalities like performance or callbacks or stack, whatever. Okay, let's go ahead and paste that into my script. Okay, again, here's my GlideAjax. Go call course Ajax. What function would you like to run? Get track categories. Do we need any other additional information? Yes, here's the track. I get that with a gform get value. That's the client-side version of, hey, what's in the track field? Pass me that. And then do a get XML answer. I love this because it's so much simpler than get XML. Now, if you had to do a synchronous, you could do get XML wait. Okay. You can't do that in scoped apps though. Look on the community. I know there's a common question of how do I do an on-submit client script synchronously, because I need to wait for that response in a scoped app. Look it up. There's a number of links. You'll find them. Very creative uses. And I think one of them uses gform.submit in the callback function. So I didn't completely digest it and understand it, but I know it's a common question. And again, we want you to try to avoid using synchronous in scoped apps, actually in any apps. Okay. When you're done, come back and run update category. That's what line 9 is telling me. It'll run update category with the answer object already. I'm sorry, it hasn't parsed it out because I passed back a string. If I pass back a number, you can get that. But this is the answer. It's a big old JSON stringified object, and I clear out all the options on the category field, then go through the list that was passed back, whether it was 1 item or 15 items. I'm going to use gform add option with the 4 parameters. There's a 3-parameter version that doesn't include op sequence. How do I know this? Because I already looked it up earlier. Here's the 3-parameter version. Field name, category, choice value, analytics, choice label, analytics. Okay, and you can use that. It works great. It will put them in whatever order you put them in. However, if you've already got options in there and you want to do an add option to say, no, this one goes between that one, or this one must go at the end or at the beginning, then you want the 4-parameter version, which allows you the index number. Okay. So I am using the index number just to keep it safe because I put it in that object as 12, 13, 14. Here's 12, 13, 14. Because that's the way it came out of the database, that's the way it's hooked up on the natural classic form, and that's the way I'm going to emulate it in this case as well. Let's go do that. Run this client script. It's time to test. Wow, that was a long time to get to our test. Back on my record producers, we've already looked at the variable. I've got my client category hooked up. Did I set the variable to unchanged? Drew is asking, oh, I did not set the variable name. Good catch, thank you. I want to set the track variable to be the trigger for this. Debugging these things is not a whole lot of fun. You can debug the server side, like the server script include that I did. Debugging, if you have to get to debugging a GlideAjax call, you're going to wind up sticking a lot of like alerts in your callback function or gform add info message so you can see what the server is sending back or what it's trying to send back. Because there's often a disconnect in parameters or format, or the payload just isn't making it for some reason. So that would have been a boo-boo. Thanks, Drew. +1 for you. Okay, record producer. Try it. Name my course. I don't care. That's not the important part. Category currently has, oh my, look at all this stuff that's under here. This isn't right, because I could be picking Chinese and then say history. Did you see a change? Now I just have these options. So what I should really do is start with no options. I could have an onload that clears that thing out, because right now it's loading all options. Where did those options come from? Let's have a little more fun. Liberal arts, theater, political, mathematics, analytics. Hey, I've got a dependent field just from creating a couple of scripts. So I call that a success. We ring the bell. Or do we hit the coin? I think we hit the coin. There. We'll figure something out here. By the way, we need a video on the debugging in Studio. So we'll do a script debugger video. I thought we did something like that in Live Coding Happy Hour, but I could be wrong. Let's do one more thing. Didn't plan on doing this, but I think it's necessary because we certainly don't want users coming into this script and saying, going, what is this? I picked calculus, and then when I went to liberal arts, it changed to theater. What happened to Can't I take calculus as a liberal arts? No, you can't. It doesn't make sense. But I think it makes sense to uncheck that value. It is starting out as none, but when the form loads, it's kind of in this crazy format. So let's do this. Let's see if there's something on configure variable that we can do. We can set a default value to none. That would start it at the top, but it wouldn't remove those options. Come on, there we are. And we could say our default value, yeah, that's fine. Default value is none. The type specifications, I've got this tied to the choices on that other table. We showed this before, but you can take a known table. This didn't used to be a possibility in select lists until recently, as far as I know, that you could bind this to the values of another choice table. You can do this between forms and tables and whatnot on the server side, but when it comes to the record producers and variables, no, it didn't used to be possible. Now it is. So if I don't want to replicate the choices for track in the form and in the record producer, I can say, hey, go get your values from that other list over there. That way I'm maintaining a choice list in one place. So when somebody says, we've got a new track, you add it in one place. You don't have to go track down all these other variables and other forms and fields. This is really, really nice, but that's what's screwing me up right here is it's saying, go get your initial values, go get all the values from the category field on this other table. Do not need, do not want. Okay, so can I get back up to the top of the list and say nothing? And say nothing here? Well, I guess if I save that, it doesn't matter. It should say you don't need this. It does say include none. I want to see what happens. PDI, you're so fast today. Okay, that was nice. Let's go try it out again. Record producer, create course. Nothing in the list. That's where it was coming from. Okay. It could also be coming from, if I did variable category. It might also, if you're not using that pointer method of saying, here's the table, here's the field, go get your choices from that other place down here, it could be coming from the question choices down here that somebody put in. So look down here in the related list because it may be getting those, which may be different than what's on your form, might be the same, who knows. So that takes care of that. We now have a nice record producer with table history, boom. Mathematics, 3 new choices. That's really how dependent fields work on the back end, how they work in a classic form. We've just emulated, duplicated, whatever, simulated, whatever word you want to put in there. We've built this out with script includes, with a client script, and bonus content because the way we built this, remember, we have our course script include. This may, in fact, be called from flow, business rule, anywhere you've got server-side code, I can now leverage this get track categories, same way that I created that interface from the client script, the client callable script include, to this script include, I can be hooking this up to other pieces, a scripted REST API, a UI action. It really doesn't matter. I've got all kinds of opportunities in here because I have that in my gray library box of go get me some stuff. If I had made this a client callable script include in that teal box over on the left, I can't hit it from anybody else. It would have done its job for the left side client stuff, but no good for other server code. So that's the bonus that I give to you today. Think about that when you're architecting your script includes. Use those script includes and flows and subflows and actions as library reusable components. Write your code once, test the heck out of it, and then reuse it elsewhere in the platform. That is going to do it for today. I appreciate you sticking around. Thank you. Thank you to the internet deities that allowed me to do this without fault this time. The technology on mine is working. The technology for the ISP has worked. Now they're going to send out a technician tomorrow and go, I don't see a problem. You know that. And then Thursday, it will show up. So I invite you to join me Thursday for another episode of Code Decoded, where I'm going to be talking about mail scripts. So if you're into doing some mail stuff and customizations and you've got to trigger emails and you need to put some scripted content in there and do some data lookups, join me for that. I've got a wonderful example of how we can do that. If you haven't dealt with mail scripts before, then you're going to learn something. I invite you to join the community, participate in the community, community.servicenow.com, and get engaged with that. Wonderful, wonderful learning experience. Lots of great stuff out there. For now, I'm Chuck Tomasi. Thanks again. Stay safe, learn, share, and be helpful. I'll talk to you again next time. Take care.